Hello, welcome back to my channel. I'm simply Christa, and this video is gonna be a little different. Yes, I am in my room on a different setup than I usually am, and yeah, I wanted to come on here to talk because maybe a couple of days ago I had did a video with my car ride. I was just kind of like, I guess, dumping my emotions out and just pouring them out and just talking through it. And I recorded the whole thing. It was like 20 minutes. I was trying to upload it and um nothing. It wasn't recording. But I knew that Daddy wanted me to do something different, go in a different direction, and stick with the original plan that he was telling me about, which is not necessarily the original plan. I know this channel is going to be evolving as I'm evolving, but one of the original things that he told me to do, or one of the reasons why I created this channel, was for me to just be transparent and talk more about who I am. So I always introduce myself as I'm simply Christa, but he's like, you need to let the people know who you are, who's your story. Like that's that's the whole point. That's the main thing, is for you to be talking about like your testimony and just who you are as a woman. And in hopes of that, like me talking about like my journey that I'm currently on and like my past, like the whole thing is for me to um really continue to heal some of my own wounds, well, all of my own wounds, but to help other people, that other young women can relate to what I'm saying and like just get some healing as well, like through my testimony. Um, sorry, I'm also trying to get used to like where I'm looking at, so I'm just gonna be looking at the screen. But um, when I was recording the last video, the main thing that I was like talking about in that car ride was about like my current feelings in that moment. And my current feelings in that moment was, it wasn't like a huge feeling of like emptiness that was there, but it was like pieces of like emptiness, like a void that was there. Kind of like a little bit of like loneliness, not on the outside, like me needing somebody to like talk to, but like on the inside. And I know in the past few days, or really just this season in general, I've been working on myself, but I've been working on drawing closer to God, having that relationship with Him. And I know those feelings of like emptiness for me. I can only speak about myself. Like that's the whole thing. I have to talk about me, myself, my journey, who I am as a person. But it was like those feelings were coming from codependency. That's what he was telling me after I was like finished recording. Um, and it was the pieces inside of me that he wanted, and he still wants to fully heal. Um, so I'm gonna come in here and talk about that, like my story, how I struggled, or how I was really just living in codependency like my entire life. Like I was groomed to be that way. Like I did not know how to be a dependent person, how to be fully dependent on God. And I'm just now at this space in my life and this space in my walk with Him, realizing fully, like each day, actually having like a full blown relationship with my Creator, like my friend, and not just like living in fear as, okay, like this is somebody that created me. God is God. I'm supposed to just like worship you, fear you, love you. But I did not know how to do that until recently, and still growing in that space. But again, the main topic that I'm talking about is codependency. And I guess I'll just talk about like my definition of codependency. I know there's probably like different definitions of how other people will break it down, or like a technical way, but my definition of codependency and what it means to me is being dependent on another source as opposed to God. Like me feeling a void inside of me, or me feeling incomplete, or me needing like human interaction, whether it's like a relationship, a friendship, and like a parent, or you just needing validation from somebody else. Me needing like a void to be filled inside of me from, again, like external validation. So that's what it was like meaning to me. That's what it means to me, actually. And I think like me being in this space now, and again like healing from it, it that's what was triggering those feelings of, I guess, like withdrawal. If I'm withdrawing from like a natural source of it, like my family, or like past toxic friendships, past toxic relationships, and fully being dependent on God, like that's a new space to learn how to fully depend on Him and not have like an actual physical human being that's standing in front of you to like fill that up with, right? So about my story, I'm gonna take it way back, and I was kind of talking to God, like, how am I gonna talk about this? Like, do I start with relationships? Do I start with like some of my past friendships? And He was telling me like, nah, you need to take it all the way back and talk about, again, who you are. Let people know who you are, and talk about your testimony, like starting from birth. So, um, I am 28 years old. So let me get that out there. I'm 28. I was born in July. Okay, no, not. It's probably not that detailed about who I am. I can't give y'all my last name and address and zip code. We're not being that transparent. But I can say that I am 28 years old, and my story of, I guess, like this space of, what I'm talking about, like codependency, and like just like my childhood. Um, Again, it started from there. It wasn't like an event after that. I was born into that space of, I guess, like emptiness. Um, I think like my earliest memory of my childhood was, or like, I guess I'm talking about like my environment. I had both of my parents. My parents were married for 30 years. It was me, my mom, my dad, and my brother. And my family dynamic was, I just remember my parents always fighting. Um, and I have to tell my story before I even like create this channel. I'm like, part of my story is I have to talk about my family. So if my family were to watch this, or anybody else that's watching, this is not to bash myself, criticize myself, or to bash like my parents or past friendships, past relationships. Like, I have to talk about people that were involved in my story, because these are people who, in a way, like helped mold me to be how I was in the past, and like some residues of who I am now as a woman, right? So I'm just gonna put that disclaimer out there. This is, again, my version of my childhood. This is my version of um past relationships, past friendships, past experiences. This is my truth. So this is not intended to say anything negative about my parents, because I love them. I love like my family. But again, I have to just put that out there, but I'm going to put this out here. Um, but my early memories of my childhood and the dynamic that it was, I remember, I'm taking it back. I'm getting kind of nervous, y'all. But I gotta talk about it. But my first memory of my parents was, like my dad and my mom always fighting. I do not really have like huge, great memories of my childhood. I just remember being invisible. I remember like having a relationship with my brother where I would go and talk and kind of like play with him, like, I guess like a typical brother and sister relationship. But my main thing is not about my brother. We're not necessarily talking about him right now, or any siblings or friendships, things like that. But like the main dynamic, which is your parents. Those are the first two people who are there to give you an earthly example of love and nurturing, how you're supposed to be, how to mold you to be a young woman or a young man. So this main part one, this unfolding of codependency and how I was created to kind of be that way in the past, is talking about my parental relationships, like my relationships with my parents. and how that planted that root and that seed inside of me. So again, like I was saying, I remember my parents always having a toxic relationship emotionally and verbally. I didn't witness like physical abuse or anything like that, but it was a very abusive environment, and I didn't like even realize that until I got older. Like that was abuse, like subjecting like your kids to y'all's fighting and arguing and stuff like that is abuse to your children. And again, I know that it wasn't intentionally trying to hurt us, but it was a very toxic environment. Always kind of waking up, well, my memories were like waking up and seeing like my parents like, fighting, arguing about like personal details, bills. Um, like my dad was a person, he would snap about like the smallest thing, like who left the fridge open, he would just explode. And I kind of felt like I was like walking on eggshells, and I felt like, I guess the reason why I don't have like great memories of like my childhood and just like me laughing and running around or like a happy childhood. Not saying that I was like physically abused or neglected with just like clothes or food and stuff like that, but like my emotions, I was not even there. Like I do not remember even being seen or heard because everything was really about them. Um, and certain like memories and like in schools and like other family members, it's again that's not necessarily what this story or this backstory is about. It's mainly again about like the great memories that molded me to be that way as a young woman. um so I do remember that. I remember my parents always fighting, my dad being like very hostile, angry, like he was just like, I was scared of him. I was scared of him because he sometimes would put out threats towards my mom, and I felt like as a young woman, like a little girl with just who I was, I felt like I had to protect my mom. Like my mom, also like on her side, I felt like she was also very emotionally unavailable. Um, and I later understood why she was that way because I think that she was just again in a toxic relationship, like very unhappy, very unemotionally, emotionally not there, like not present. Um, again, not getting attention as like a little girl, not being told I'm beautiful, not being able to just sing and dance and just be free, like a free spirit. I just feel like I was just like existing, like I was just there, like years were just passing. But being a young girl, I really wanted that attention. I really wanted to be seen, to be validated as any child would want to feel, right? Um, so I don't think I did anything to like act out to get that attention. Me as a person, how that seed again of codependency was like planted inside of me, I feel like I probably always naturally had a gift or like a personality that God put inside of me to be like a giver and be a helper and to be a nurturer at a young age. So I think I was doing that emotionally, like towards my mom. Like she would come to me as a young woman, as a little girl, and kind of tell me about certain things within their relationship. And on top of me already seeing what was going on in my parents' situation, so I would see them again, like having their verbal back and forth altercations and their fights, and I would see my mom as like the victim. Like I saw from my viewpoint is that my dad is this big bad wolf, and my mom is like being abused. Like, why are we here? Like this is why don't you just leave? Like I want to just be able to talk without being snapped at. Like I just felt very muted. Like I did not know how to express myself, and I didn't have the space to do so. Um, so let me take a breath. That's a lot. I feel like I'm saying a lot. It's just coming out. But I'm gonna try to say as much as possible without it being too long, and I don't want to like rush it because again, like I'm trying to get as much as I can out, but I know it's no way that I can possibly say 28 years worth. But I'm just gonna say what the Holy Spirit is allowing me to say for the point of this first part. It's gonna be multiple parts, but this one is like the root and the core of like my childhood. Um, so again, with that being said, like I guess mainly focusing back on like my mom again, like I saw like my dad during those early years in the early space in my life, is my dad just, we didn't have a relationship. Like when he was cool, when he was outside of like my mom, I would go, yeah, and talk to him, and we would like laugh, and we have like moments and go to like parks and stuff like that. Like, I'm not saying it was all bad. Like, we had fun times together as a family, but it was either one person was trying to be present, like my dad was trying to be active and come on, let's be a family, and my mom was like, nah, like I'm not, like I'm depressed, I'm not here, or like vice versa. Like, I just never fully had my parents emotionally present. Like, I never had my parents to emotionally see me. Um, and that's important. Like, you have to like see your child for who they are and allow them to be their free little selves. Like, I just didn't get the emotional love that I needed. I didn't get the emotional validation or talking about feelings and who I was as a little girl, as Christa. Um, so again, that's kind of a little bit about my dad. Like, I don't remember too much. We're just It's just like laughing and like having like a whole bunch of like memories. I just remember him being like really angry, but mainly like I think that's where me and my mom began to be like this. Like, my mom began to, I don't know if she saw me as like, again, I don't want to say like how she was feeling. I'm going to say more back of like my viewpoint, but I kind of felt like as a little girl, like I was my mom's friend at a young age. Like, she would come and talk to me. Um, Kind of felt like it was like my job to go out and do things with her as I began to become a little older, like talk to her about like my personal things. Like, I had to be the one to kind of come to her to form a relationship because I was lacking that. Like, I wanted it so bad. Like, I was like clinging on to, like, I just want to be seen. Like, I want any attention I can kind of get from you. Um I want to come to you in order for me to get this void filled inside of me with just talking about myself and having communication with another person, like somebody that I love, to be seen. Like, I felt like I always had to come to her and pull it out of her, like pull the emotions out of her. Like, at a certain point, I had to ask her, "Hey, can you give me a hug? Hey, I love you." I began to be like maybe I felt like the parent. I don't know if that's kind of harsh to say, but hey, it's my truth. Like, maybe I felt like the one more emotionally present in our relationship, and I was just wanting it from her so bad. Like, I'll listen to you. Um, I'll be there for you. Like, I don't want you to cry. Like, what's going on? Like, I feel like I was like checking more on her emotions than it was her checking in on mine. Like, again, like I'm saying, I was more emotionally present. Like, I was just needing it. Like, I just really, really wanted like my mom. I really wanted like my dad, but it was mostly like my mom. And um during my young childhood, I was in school for like a little bit, but at a certain point, like maybe like 13, 12, like I began to get like homeschooled. So that kind of cut back on the other interactions with other kids. And I wasn't really just super social in school anyway. I was always kind of like a little awkward and like an introvert to myself. So, like, that main strong friendship that I had as a young child was with my mom. And I kind of felt like guilty if I wasn't making sure she was okay, because I saw her as like an abused person. I saw her as like unhappy. I saw her as like crying and just like not there. And I just wanted that attention from her so bad. So again, I'm saying that to say those are just like some of the early memories and the reasons why I began to be that way, because it was kind of like in reverse. Like, I was more so checking on her, like clinging towards her or clinging towards um like my mom and like my dad, and wanting to be seen and wanting to like speak up, or just to like have a voice or like interject in some conversations, or if we did go out for like family dinners and stuff like that, I just felt like I want to say something, but I would always get like shut down. I was always get like cut off, or like I just couldn't talk. I had no voice, and the voice that I did have, I was trying to use that to, I guess, do some good in a sense. Like, I just wanted to like be there for my mom. I wanted to, I guess it just made me feel like I was needed or I was seen in those moments. Um like, maybe I was being a shoulder to cry on. I felt validated in those moments. Again, my mom would talk to me about stuff about her old childhood relationships. Um maybe some abuse that she had in her childhood, like her relationship with her sisters, like little things that little girls don't need to hear from their moms. Like there's some stuff that is just like, okay, that's a little personal, like your ex-boyfriends and stuff like that. Like she would be coming to me about her hurt and her pain, and that it just made me feel needed. It made me feel like this is normal. This, like, I should be here for my parent. Like I should be the protector because she's not being protected. And that's my example of what I saw as a woman. I didn't see a woman who was like happy. I didn't. Again, I'm probably more so focusing on my mom in this video because me being a young woman, your mom is your example of who you're supposed to be as a woman. That's who's nurturing you. That's who's your supply of love. Besides from God, but like your earthly supply of love and like that nourishment that you need emotionally. So that was my foundation. My foundation wasn't getting all the my memory. My memory was I never remember my mom telling me I was beautiful. I never remember my mom telling me that I was like special or any of those things or smart. I remember my mom making sure I was clean. I remember my mom making sure that I was provided for. We did our homework, but emotionally, I was not seen. I had no voice. I was just existing in my home. And I didn't even realize it until like maybe a couple years ago, like where that was coming from. Like, why was I feeling as an older adult now? Like, why am I feeling not seen, not heard? I don't feel beautiful deep down in my core. I don't feel special. I have a trouble accepting love. I need to cling on to these relationships because this is foreign to me. Again, that is where that root came from, of that development of I have to cling on to something because this is the only supply of attention that I'm getting, that I'm needing from my parents. Like the first example of what it's supposed to be. So again, as I began to get like older from my childhood and like grow, it was the same pattern. I was just like, okay, well, I wasn't getting this. This is what I'm used to. I'm used to clinging towards outside people. I'm used to clinging towards or not feeling truly seen or validated on the inside. So I'm going to cling to this man. I'm going to cling to this friendship. I'm going to have to be the helper. I'm going to have to be the person that's taking care of everybody else. I'm going to have to be a doer to get love back in return. So yeah, I think again, this is just part one of like how that started. And of course, try not to be like vague. But again, like I said, if you give me the mic, I'm gonna keep talking. Like I know this is good. It will be like a 10-hour video, but I know that God wanted me to share a little bit more about myself and who I was and how like that foundation started. And I'm gonna have several videos about childhood and like my dad, like my brothers, and like different experiences. But I wanted to just use this video as an introduction to codependency and like my struggles with it, and not even like necessarily my struggles, like my foundation of why, like the first introduction to why I was that way. And again, like to wrap it all up again, it's like my first few memories just not having any like attention, validation, or like being seen or heard in my home. So that's where that mainly came from. That was a deep breath. I really just said all that. But again, I want to go into depth into more videos, and I'm going to, of course, do part 2 and 3 and multiple videos about this. Again, just laying down the introduction to who I am and my story. And this is going to be like unfolding. It's going to be like my journey, but it's kind of like a to be continued. So that's like a part 1 of birth, parts of childhood, parts of like early years. So yeah, I'm going to end it there. Again, this is part 1 of roots of codependency, feelings, loneliness, maybe feelings of like not being seen, not being heard, but this is just introductions. I want y'all to know who I am. I want y'all to know who is Christa. What's her story? Where you come from? Like, how can I relate to that? Like, what is the purpose of these videos? So I want you to come back. I'm going to post this on my blog and do a little bit more writing on my blog. I do have that a website available. It's called imsimplychrista.com. I'm going to link it. Y'all go in there. Just to read more. I'm just getting started with that also. So check that out. And if you are interested in part 2, y'all come back. Share this with a friend. Tell a friend. Subscribe. Notifications. All that. I'm going to be back. I'm going to be back to share more. But this is part 1. Thank y'all for tuning in. I'm going to be back. Y'all. Okay.